Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. Before we talk about our next story here, which is coming from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune this last week, perhaps you saw it. It's talking about condo associations are feeling the heat as fees and costs rise up, but the values are sinking. And they, in the article, kind of created an idea that there is a pot that's just bubbling and simmering and ready to explode here and get out of hand. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on, too. We've got this other story, too. A homeowner association went through, folks, a couple of years only to find out that the city forgot to charge them for water for about 3 years on part of the property, and they had over a $450,000 water bill. Oh man. God. We're going to be talking about that and so much more. But before we do, I want to take a moment to talk to folks about a special offer from the folks at CAI. That's the Community Associations Institute. They have allowed us here on Where You Live to offer each and every month for the next year a 1-year membership in CAI. They're calling it the Marge Peterson Memorial Scholarship. Marge recently passed away and was a big proponent of education and was someone who was very active in our association, was president of the Minnesota chapter and was one of the first national presidents as well of the organization. Yeah. But this is a great gift. All you need to do is be the first one to call our hotline and give us your name, your address, your phone number, your email address, and we will make sure that you start receiving this membership. This membership is good for educational seminars that take place. The association not newsletter, but magazine that is just wonderful. Mm-hmm. It's a great resource. You're going to be able to network with other people in homeowner associations, meet other people that are very familiar with the association industry.
Mm-hmm. The magazine itself is worth the membership. Articles are written by local suppliers and service providers to homeowners associations, by local property managers, by local boards. So you're hearing local issues that are pertinent to your homeowners association.
You're right. Well, actually, they'll get two. They'll get the Minnesota magazine as well as the national. So they get,
I was thinking of the Minnesota. There you go.
It's a twofer. So it's even better than that. Doesn't cost anything. So give us a call, 952-224-2668. Be the first one to be the winner of the December issue. We have winners for September, October, November. This is time for the December winner of that great membership. So just give us a call. Well, let's talk about this story, shall we, Tony? It begins by giving a story of a woman by the name of Nicole Battles, and she's the president of the Trey Lee Terrace Townhouse Association in Coon Rapids. And the article begins by saying, window requirements and rental policies were the big issues there at that particular association. The article goes on to begin by saying living in a homeowner association is advertised as carefree living, but isn't so carefree these days because there's tensions growing between homeowners and their associations reaching a fever pitch. This is the kind of writing that we talk about this so many times. Yeah. It's just incendiary, you know?
Yes, it's inflammatory. Yeah.
It is. It's irresponsible.
I think so too.
Are there times when people get real upset living in a homeowners association? Yes. But do they not in a city? Do they not in their
Sure.
state? Do they
Sure.
not with their federal government?
Sure. People get upset with their neighbors everywhere.
Yeah. but the idea is that in associations, unlike anybody else in the country, they're dealing with empty units and foreclosures, and residents are frustrated and they're coming to loggerheads. But even if you live in a single family home, don't you see homes going
Sure.
into foreclosure and vacant homes
Sure.
and concerned
Affecting
about
your values.
neighborhood values?
You know the difference. The difference is in a homeowners association, you're forced to cooperate with your neighbors to get something done. So you can't, you know what I mean? You have
That's
to
a very good
rely
point.
on each other. And people don't like that. Some people don't like that. They would rather just sit and complain and be upset and get their way without having to be cooperative with their neighbors.
Well, you're right. There really is no difference in living in a single-family home in a city. The only thing that we're talking about here is in a city, you're talking about the governance of a much larger group of people. So it is harder to watch and to stay on top of all of the activities
Sure.
as much as you see in
your
HOA.
Your governing authority is farther removed from you. And in a city situation, you have less influence on what's going to happen and what's going to be decided. You have more influence on your homeowners association.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's in a city. Are people allowed to speed in their car? No. But do they catch each and every person 100% of the time? Well, heavens no.
That's right.
The amount of people that you would need, police force, just to watch that one activity.
It doesn't warrant it. Yeah.
It doesn't warrant it. And same thing in an association. But here they're giving this idea, folks, that the Star Tribune gave this idea that things are just a simmering pot that's ready to boil over. And I don't think that this is really true. Tony, tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think a majority of homeowner associations are run very well.
I agree. By very conscientious volunteers who own homes in the community. That's something that the press and our politicians and legislators often forget, is the homeowners association is not some corporate giant ruling us from China. The homeowners association is made up of your neighbors and other homeowners in your association who are volunteering their time. So if you're upset with them for raising your dues, let's stop and think a minute. They're also raising their own dues. Yeah. And they're doing it because costs are increasing. If they're enforcing a rule, they have to enforce it on themselves as well. So this whole idea of suing your homeowners association, you're suing yourself. And rather than cooperate, rather than get involved and try and foment change, you're going to sue yourself.
Now, in the midst of all of this, and this article goes back and forth in talking about how things are ready to explode, there's some good information in here.
Yeah.
It's too bad that it was kind of diminished a little bit by trying to sell a few more papers by being...
by talking about this huge controversy.
Oh, yes. One of the things, great statement, for some owners, problems are compounded. Why? Because they didn't take the time originally to read and go over the documents.
Right. Our friend Dan Greenstein is quoted quite a bit in this article. And, of course, we think he's the voice of reason. And he was in this article.
Yep. Dan said it has become heated, he said. He said there is more and more homeowners who are deciding to fight the association regardless of merit or cause or personal cost because living in a home is an emotional thing for them.
Well, and I think that's very interesting. He made that statement. In spite or regardless of whether their argument has merit or cause, and in spite of personal cost, some homeowners are so emotional about these issues that they decide to sue, even when they're in the wrong. I think that's kind of amazing.
Yes. And that ties in with our last story too, where someone was so upset they said to their association, you know what, you've just got to enforce it at any cost.
That's right.
At whatever's involved, you must push it to make sure that everybody complies. And it is as if there is among certain people a disconnect with reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I agree. They just feel like if they make enough noise, loud enough, long enough, they're going to get their way. Having said all that, I certainly empathize with people who find themselves stuck with a home that perhaps they no longer want, but they owe more on it than it's worth. And they're in a homeowners association where they're not happy living, but they no longer have that option of selling and getting out. Back in the early part of the century and the late part of the 20th century, the market was much better. So you could sell your home if you weren't happy in your neighborhood. You could move on. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, there was an old adage that they said, what's the difference between the difference between buying a house at a high price is the same as a haircut. A bad haircut. If you have a bad haircut, just wait a few weeks.
Yeah.
If you buy the house a little bit too high price, just wait a little bit of time, and you're going to be just fine. That's not necessarily the case.
So people are extremely frustrated. We're stuck in a position where we don't have the options we used to have. And so who do you turn to? You take it out on your neighborhood, I guess.
Well, I think this article deserves a little bit more of our attention because, folks, some of the folks that are talked about here, they are kind of put in a light of maybe just being a little bit too... what's the word I'm looking for? Too forceful and not really taking into consideration the ideas and the thoughts of the homeowners. But I think the actual opposite is going on. We have some very thoughtful people who are running and serving their homeowners associations on their board, and we want to salute them and take our hats off to them. We're going to cover this, but we need to take a break right now. We'll be back after these messages.